Well, it's actually something that we brought up at GPTCM, was pharmacovigilance activities, which is the risk assessment. And perhaps with traditional medicines, they should actually increase the monitoring and the reporting of these risks which occur, in order to then make the registration, if we're going back to the product, the registration of these herbal remedies a bit easier, so that you're getting more of the information from the risk aspect, and that could perhaps be brought into the actual action of what you're doing. If you understand what I'm saying.
Not quite.
No.
I think it's an unfortunate fallout of all this need to control the plants, so that the identification and all the rest of it that's gone on over the last few years. If it's limited what you do as a practitioner, that's a really unfortunate fallout, and it shouldn't happen.
I could give you a very easy example of how I think what I might have in mind. So, because the language is a language of translation, it has to be scientized. Yes, it has to be explained in scientific language. It has to be but as I said, the knowledge of this, where it all comes from, is to me also because I have devoted quite a bit of my time to it. So maybe I have an attachment to it. So but having and I'm quite a critical person. The knowledge base that's in there and the kind of development of thinking about something, yes, is so sophisticated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what I would like to hear, and maybe that would already be one step, if in everything you do, you acknowledge the sophistication of what I would call this living practice of Chinese medicine.
Absolutely.
Whereas if it's said, this is something primitive that has to be actually brought to this kind of level of the modern world that we're living in, then there is a devaluation of actually something that is a basis, as I say, that you're using. And I think if this was always put out, yes, then eventually people will try to understand, will understand, and then actually, that what you said, there would be a spoke system, and there is kind of like a
standardized thing that
system
everyone
that
would take.
can subscribe.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
maybe that then would happen, and then I have nothing against something like that. I'm actually involved in something like that myself. Yeah. Okay. So, but I think even as we talk about that one process, I would like to see that the kind of quality, and I can only call it sophistication.
I think Darrow's one of Darrow's slide there about those 7 properties of these herb mixture. I think they actually, on that slide, I think I can see the wisdom there. So one is not trivializing herbal medicine. If you actually look at the slide, I think that was a very, very good slide. And recognizing the intricacy of herbal medicine. And then I think I agree with Darrow that we could have 2 approaches. One is actually just like if you actually go to Boots, you can actually have just like, for instance, cosmetics. You can actually go to Boots, you can go to L'Oreal or things of that kind, but you can go to Spa. They can give you a personalized sort of anti-aging sort of formula. I can see that kind of. Do you think that might not happen?
Oh yes, like for instance, if just changing the language, like saying, there's Huang Qingtang in the Shanganlun, they are able to use it for 50, 60, 70 different indications. We don't understand any of that, but it's very sophisticated. All that we are able to do is, that would already change the language to a degree where you would, does that make sense?
Yeah,
yes? Whereas rather than having the language of, they didn't really understand what they were doing, but we are showing that it can be used for this one particular.
Well, I've always been in more of it. That's why,
simple things.
They work, and how do they work? It's amazing.
If you read the original paper there, I think there was no element of actually belittling. I think that Tommy Cheng is actually an advocate of the value of Chinese medicine, and I think we're actually in the same boat.
Like
we're in the same boat. I think that's why we're here.
But I don't want to monopolize.
No. But this is important. I think for you to.
Good point.
Gentleman at the back.
Well, this is kind of another side of what Volker was saying, is that then you get into the danger of either self-prescribing by an individual or prescribing by a non-practitioner in the way that biomedicine is prescribed. So every time I feel low in energy, I'm going to take Ren-Shen or ginseng, etc. And that has dangers to it as well, that you're suddenly going into, we're taking this and we're co-opting this into this system of biomedicine where we have this one-to-one corollary. Headache, you take your aspirin. Low energy, you take your ginseng. Ginseng is a cardiotonic. It can be very dangerous. And I've worked with patients that have overdosed on ginseng
Yeah.
that are quite ill, as you know, with many other herbs. The other thing I wanted to say is Vivian brought up a really wonderful thing about the art of the practitioner. Well, this is true in biomedicine as well. If you look at Bergen Mall's book, they're really talking about biomedicines, and we tend to call it biomedicine and think it's this monolithic thing, whereas the way we practice in the United States is quite different from here, it's quite different from Germany, etc. So the truth of the matter is, that's overlooked, but it isn't when it comes to another system. So there's a bit of a bias there, really, because each practitioner really practices individually, regardless if it's Chinese medicine or if it's Western medicine.
Sure. You're right.
Yes, please, Anthony.
You've gone down from 20 herbs down to 3. Does that mean that you feel the other 17 were of no significance?
Good point. No. In fact, when we started that process, Dr. Luo said, well, it's not going to work, which was right. And then after some persuasion, she said, well, it'll work, but it won't work as well. And if you because actually I don't use the same 20 herbs on all the people. I mix and match them. So yes, you could standardize it. I use a core battery of stuff that will impact to some degree, but it won't be a total wipe-out cure. It'll just downgrade it a bit. We recognised that, but we had no choice. We couldn't do 20 herbs. We couldn't do 10 even in the end. We did well with 10. But what we found scientifically was that there was a lot of redundancy in the plants that they were using. Clearly, before analytical techniques came along, they incorporated that process into combining those herbs. And what we found is there were some plants that actually had exactly the same activity as other plants. And we removed them by that process, by saying, well, those two are actually doing the same thing, so that one can go, because this one's easier to manage. And we whittled it down to 3. I have to say, the 3 isn't as good as the 10, but it's the best as we could get.
It's not as good.
Not as good, no.